We're going to recap graphing and finding all the information for quadratics in Vertex, Standard, and Intercept form on the calculator. So the first thing that we want to do is to put the equation into the calculator. So go into y equals, and it doesn't matter what form it's in. Whether it's in Vertex, Intercept, or Standard form, you still want to type it in exactly as you see it. So 2 parentheses, x minus 3, close parentheses, squared, minus 2. So first, just make sure you type in your equation correctly, and then you want to graph your parabola. Remember, if you can't see the vertex or you can't see parts of it, the first thing you want to do is always hit zoom and then 6 for standard, and that'll give you from -10 to +10 on the x and -10 to +10 on the y. So then once you see your graph, I'm going to show you how to find the vertex and some of our other information here. So in finding the vertex, remember, we said in class that the vertex was always going to be either the minimum value or the maximum. So in our case, when our parabola is opening upwards, the vertex is the lowest point on the graph. So that's our minimum value. So we're going to be working out of the calculate option. So hit second, trace to get to calculate, and we want to find the minimum value. That's the third option. So hit number 3, and then it asks you a question left bound. So you want to make sure that your spider guide is on the left side of the vertex, and hit enter once. Then it asks the question right bound, so we need to move him past the vertex until he's on the right side of the vertex, and then hit enter. Then it asks the question, do you want him to guess? You hit yes, and it should give you a point. So it says the minimum point is where x equals 3 and y equals -2. So we're going to round this to x equals 3. So here on our chart, we can fill in our vertex is 3, -2. And remember, then you're going to take that vertex, the x coordinate, and that is going to be your axis of symmetry. And remember, your axis of symmetry is always an equation, so it needs to say x equals 3. Then based off of our vertex, we can describe the horizontal and vertical shift. So remember, the horizontal shift moves left and right, and that's going to be our x value. So if it's a +3, we're moving in the positive direction, which is to the right, 3. Vertical, that's going to be our up and down, which is our y value. Since it's a -2, negative goes in the down direction 2 units. So remember, that negative tells us we're going down. So make sure you're putting down +2. Don't put a -2 right here. Okay? Then the next thing we're going to calculate is the X-Intercept. So for the X-Intercept, when you look at your graph back onto your calculator, you see that you have 2 X-intercepts. So we actually need to calculate both of those. So I'm going to teach you the process, and we have to do it twice. So remember, we talked about the 4 words that mean the same thing: solutions, X-intercepts, zeros, and roots. So we're going to calculate, so again, second, trace, and this time we're going to calculate the zero of the function. So hit 2 for the zeros, and again it asks for left bound. So you want to choose one of the X-intercepts. So let's go with this one first, and then you want to be on the left side of it. So you put that spider guide as close to that X-intercept, and then you want to move to the left. So hit your cursor over to the left a couple times, and then hit enter. Then it asks for the right bound. So first, put your spider guide back at the X-intercept, and then move over to the right a couple times and hit enter. Then it asks to guess. You hit enter, and there's one of your X-intercepts. So we're going to go ahead and write that in. One of our X-intercepts is 2, 0. And then we need to find the other one. So we're going to go back and do this process again. Hit second, trace, and then we're going to calculate the 0. So this time we need to go over to the other X-intercept So you get really close to it, and then the left bound, again, hit the left cursor and enter. Then it asks for the right bound. Go back to your X-Intercept and then click to the right, hit enter, and then you can guess. And there's your other X-Intercept. So then we can go back and write down our other one, 4, 0. And now we want to look for our Y-intercept. For the Y-intercept, we're going to go back to that calculate function, second, trace, and then this time we just want to calculate a certain value. So pick option 1, and it asks which X value are you looking for. So remember, the Y-intercept will always have an X coordinate of 0. So if you type in 0, you're telling the computer to find, or you're telling the calculator to find the Y value when X is 0. So hit enter, and it tells you that Y is 16 when X is 0. And you can't see it on your graph, but it calculates it for you. So we can write in our Y-intercept of 0, 16. And now we're down to the last 4. Remember, when we get down to the last 4, domain, range, increasing, and decreasing, that means we need to plot our points. When we're plotting points on our graph, remember that you need to plot 5 good points. So we're going to use the table to do that. And in order to get 5 good points, you really want your points to be around the vertex so you can get that U shape. So to go to our table, you want to hit second, graph, and then we actually have our vertex here, which is 3, -2. So you want to find around where the X coordinate is 3. So right at that vertex. So let's plot the points around there. So I'm going to go ahead and jot these down. The ones that we want to plot are 1, 6, 2, 0, 3, -2, 4, 0, and then 5, 6. So then I can go ahead and plot those. We have 1, 6, 2, 0, 3, -2, 4, 0, and then 5, 6. And then we want to sketch our graph. So here is a sketch of our parabola with 5 good points. So we can go ahead and fill in our domain and range. Remember, domain is how far left is our graph going to go and how far right. So on our X values, our graph is always going to go to the left and it'll always go to the right. So our domain is going to be from -infinity to +infinity. For the range, you want to look at the lowest Y value first. So the lowest Y value is going to be -2 right here at the vertex. So our range is going to go from -2, and since our graph is always going to go up, it's going to go out to +infinity. Now, in order to answer our increasing and decreasing, we're going to need to plot our axis of symmetry. So remember, the axis of symmetry is a vertical line that goes through our vertex. And for increasing and decreasing, you want to section off your graph to see where the part of the graph is increasing and what part is decreasing. So I'm going to use this shade to cut off half of our graph, and I'm going to cut it at the axis of symmetry. So we're actually looking for the X values where our graph is increasing and our X values where the graph is decreasing. So if you take a look at this, from -infinity all the way up to where X equals 3 at the axis of symmetry, our graph is going downwards from left to right. And going downwards is decreasing. So you go to your decreasing, and we're going to say from -infinity all the way up until X is 3, our graph is going to be decreasing. Then we can take our shade and then flip it to the other side, and then from X equals 3 to +infinity, our graph is going to be increasing or going upwards. So for our increasing interval, from 3 to positive infinity, our graph is increasing. Now, the reason why we use parentheses for increasing and decreasing, and we don't use brackets like we did for the range, is because right at that point where x equals 3, we're not really sure if it's decreasing or increasing. So we don't want to include that point just because we're not sure what happens. So that's how you use your calculator to graph 5 good points and to fill in all of the information for our chart. And again, it doesn't matter whether your equation is in Vertex, standard, or intercept form. It'll be the same every time. So just make sure you get in some practice on the calculator so you know exactly what to use to find each of these pieces of information you need to fill in the chart. That's it.